Hi everyone, another edition here of the Yalkut Yosef Halacha Shabbat, following the second edition of the book. I'm going to continue this long series at the moment. I think it's, believe the 18th installment of the Halacha. We're going to learn Shabbat together, Halacha Shabbat, and continue this series. Nothing like on a fantastic Wednesday morning at the time of recording, surrounded with some Israeli flags right behind me at the moment. Nothing like giving a bit of tzedakah before doing this session over here. We get the mitzvah of doing it, the opportunity of doing it. So we're continuing the second edition here of the Yalkut Yosef. And let's get underway, friends, at the moment. We've been talking about leaving food on the fire as Shabbat begins, and we're going to continue on this specific topic over here. We spoke about yesterday, we concluded with regards to the conditions for permitting Hazara on Shabbat with regards to food. Now we're going to talk about a topic of transferring a pot to another warming tray on Shabbat. So we talked about there's different differences, if especially one follows the Sephardic Halacha or the Ashkenazic Halacha respectively, and something that we are going to look into now at the moment. So friends, let's get started. Okay, we are on Halacha Yud at the moment, Siman 253. Tavshil amunach al esh deluka ובמהלך השבת קבע הגז והתבשיל הוא רובו לך. יש אומרים שאסור לקח את התבשיל מעל האש ולהניחה על האש מכוסה של השכנים, אפילו אם תבשיל עדיין חם בחום שצלדת בו, שאין להביא מקירה לקירה. So friends, what's going on here? Some poskim rule that it's forbidden to move a liquid food from one covered fire to another, even if the food is completely cooked over here. Accordingly, if the fire under a pot of liquid food became extinguished for one reason or another on Shabbat, one may not take the pot and place it on a neighbor's covered fire, according to this. Even if the food is still hotter than Yad Tzedebo. Remember, Yad Tzedebo was that definition of temperature, which is so hot you'd actually burn your hand if it's there. Likewise, if food is on an electric warming tray, and the electricity goes out for one reason or another, one may not move the food to a neighbor's electric warming tray over here. That's the first part over here. You can't actually use that. וכן הדין, בתבשיל לך המנוח על פלטה חשמלית ונפסק החשמל בשבת, שאין להעביר את התבשיל לפלטה של השכנים, שאין להעביר מקירה לקירה. ויש חולקים ואומרים שכל זה בקירה שבזמנם, אבל בגז מכוסה בפח או אסבסט, וכן בפלטה חשמלית המיוחדת לשבת, אין איסור להביא מקירה לקירה, אחר שאין בזה משום מכסה כמבשל. So what's going on here? We spoke about מכסה המבשל yesterday, the appearance of cooking. So what's going on, friends? Other poskim ruled that as long as the food is as hot as Yad Tzedebo, and it's already been completely cooked before, it may be transferred from one fire to another covered fire on Shabbat. They argued that we cannot compare gas fires covered with a sheet or metal, sheet naturally a pach or asbestos, or electric warming trays, to the types of ovens described in the Talmud. Remember, in the Talmud times, there used to be different kinds of ovens at that point in time. I should maybe get some diagrams out at a later stage and show you. The rules and restrictions of our Rabbonim applied to the ovens that existed in their times, for there was a problem of appearing to perform an act of cooking. Mechsei mavashel. This is a concept we talked about very much so yesterday. This does not apply to the situation under discussion, since a person rarely, if ever, cooks on a covered fire or an electric warming tray during the weekdays. This is okay. Let's continue over here. The Katav Harashba, the great commentary of the rabbi named the Rashba, actually says, he's written, שאין לאיסור משום מכסה כמבשל, אלא דבבה שרגילים לבשל בו ברוב פעמים, וכן עיקר לדינה כסברה זו, שמותר להביא בתבשיל לך מפלטה שכבתה לפלטה של השכנים. Okay, so friends, what's going on here? The Rashba clearly stated, the commentator did, that the prohibition of appears to be an act of cooking applies only to methods that are usually used actually for cooking itself. Okay, okay. So that's mentioned. ואמנם, okay, והן עיקר לדינה כסברה זו, שמותר להביא תבשיל לך מפלטה שכבתה לפלטה של השכנים. ואמנם, יש להיזהר שאם התבשיל רובו לך, if the majority of the tavshil of this pot is לך, תהיינו שהיה בשמש לדבר הלך, over here, כגון מרק, או עם אטריות, או קנדלך, או קנדלך, צריך שישאר הדיין חם בחום שהיה צלד בו, שאם נצטענן או נעשה פושר אין להעבירו לפלטה אחרת, שיש בישול לך בישול בדבר לך, והוא שהתבשיל מבושל כל צורכו, והאשכנזים מקלים גם בתבשיל פושר ורק בצונן לגמרי מחמירים. So friends, what's going on over here? The Rashba clearly stated that the prohibition of appears to be an act of cooking applies only to methods that are usually used for cooking itself. However, in practice, the halacha follows the second opinion over here, the second thing. Therefore, it's permissible to transfer a pot of food from one gas fire to another if the fires are covered with a sheet of metal respectively, or from one electric warming tray to another one. One must be sure, however, that a liquid food such as soup, which we talked about, which is still as hot as Yatzalibah, it has to still be that hot as Yatzalibah. Otherwise, it's prohibited, since it's forbidden to cook liquids, even if they were cooked once before. The Ashkenazi Jews from Europe follow the opinion that as long as the liquid food is warmer than room temperature, it may be transferred to another covered fire over here. So that's how they would fall over there. I'm just going to have a drink over here and continue. Okay, friends, we are now on Halacha number 11 in Siman 253. We're talking more within regards to transferring on Shabbat from one pot to another within different things. So friends, we're all learning laws of Shabbat together, how to keep Shabbat properly. Halacha Yud 11. But Tavshil Yavesh, remember there's a difference if you're warming up something that is liquidy like a soup, or something that is dry like a steak or something like that, or a dry piece of meat. There's differences on Shabbat if you want to move it from one tray to another. Let's look more into it. But Tavshil Yavesh, Kagon HaChamin, She'osim Lichvot Shabbat, Mishu'it or Hummus. Say for example, you have got a pot, and this time you've got a chamin, a chulun, which has got, it's more of a dry mixture of hummus kind of food or shu-wit kind of food. Im tapchoy adama or basar, it's got dry potatoes in it or dry meat. Sha'ikahu ayavesh, it's totally dry. You don't really care that there's a bit of liquid inside this chamin, it says. You're allowed to move it from one electric plate to another one to warm up on Shabbat, even if it's let's just say it's gonna let's say it becomes better, even if there's some improvement to it. Even if there's this sheet of metal in between. Okay, this has got to be only in a case where there's no fire underneath. And it's got to be something that's totally cooked. Okay. Ulam kirayim chashmaliyim sherigilim levashel al zeh v'gam lashchot al zeh lefi midat daragot chom yesh lachush b'zeh lemechsi k'mavashel b'tzerik shiyut tzana'ai hachazara kedei lachzir alav. Okay, so what's it saying over here, friends? Okay, if one wishes to transfer a cooked food to an electric stove top, one must fulfill various conditions necessary for returning a food to a fire, as outlined, we learned in Halacha number 9. This is because even though the fire, the heating element, is covered, it is normal to cook on a stove top. Okay, so let's continue. Over here. Okay. If it's a tafshil that the majority is liquidy over here, which we said is problematic, and it's cold or it is lukewarm. Well, it's only b'diavad at the end of, if this happened, we can be lenient on this. It's not ideal scenario to do this. We can be reliant on the opinions of the Rashba and the Rambam, because they have this concept that there's no cooking after cooking within regards to a liquid food. Okay. You're also allowed through a non-Jew to move a pot kedera if it's totally liquidy, even using a non-Jewish person, even if it's cold at that stage in time. But I don't think this is ideal scenario also. So remember, the word sonin means cold. By the way, all these halachot which I'm teaching you, please look inside of the Yalkut Yosef book and learn it inside. Don't just rely on this. It's just a summary with regards to some of the notes of this book over here. Now we're talking about using a timer. Is that going to be allowed on Shabbat with regards to cooking, friends? Let's see. Halacha Yud Bet. מותר לתת אפילו בשבת תבשיל מרק מבושל צונן על גבי פלטה חשמלית שאינה פועלת ובמשך השבת תדלק על ידי שעון שבת ומחמיר תבוא על הברכה. So there's case here, friends, over here. What if you've got an electric warming tray on Shabbat and you've got a cold soup over here for one reason or another, obviously cooked over here? Can you put it on the electric plate? And it's cold, there's no heating element at the moment, it's not working. And then via the timer at a later stage, it's going to switch on automatically and heat up later. Can you do that? Seemingly, yes, it's fine. However, it's better to avoid this, and you get a blessing if you do avoid this. Okay, Halacha Yud Gimel, friends. Nothing like learning Torah in Eretz Israel. Okay, Halacha Yud Gimel. Tavshila munach ala plata v'nitztamek. Okay, if a pot of food that had been left on a fire during Shabbat is drying out over here, so you've got something, it's on an electric warming plate, okay, and it's drying out, this food is. You can't now pour hot water inside this pot on Shabbat itself. Even if it's been removed from the fire already. Okay, why is this? It is forbidden to pour boiling water onto it, even if one removes a pot from the fire to add the boiled water to it and then returns it to the fire. Over here, it's suggested that one remove the pot from the fire, place an empty pot over the fire, and then place the pot of food on top of that empty pot. That's eight over here. אלה יסיע הקדרה על הפלטה ויניח קדרה ריקנית על פי הפלטה ואז ישים הקדרה שתבשיל בתוכה על גבי הקדרה הריקנית ויזהה שהתבשיל לך יהיה רותח. אוקיי, ואין צריך להיזהה שלא ליתן הקדרה על גבי קרקע הפלטה החשמלית, אין איסור מחזיק מבשל. So what's it saying over here? If the food in the pot is mainly, let's say, liquid over here, one must make sure that the pot of food is not placed on the floor in the meantime, and that the food remains at least yatzelet bowl, which we talked about yesterday, until it is put back on the fire. If it has cooled down to the point that it's no longer yatzelet bowl, which is boiling hot, then putting it back on would be an act of cooking over here, since it's forbidden to cook a liquid food a second time on Shabbat, even though it had been completely cooked previously over here. So friends, let's continue. Okay. ואין צריך להיזהר שלא ליתן הקדרה על גבי קרקע דפלטה חשמלית, אין איסור מחזיק מבשל. ואף העדות שנהגו בחוץ לארץ להקל בהוספת מים רוצחים לתבשיל. בארץ ישראל ינהגו כדעת מרן שקיבלנו הורותיו. We accepted the rulings of Maran, Shulchan Aruch, Rav Yosef Karo, in Israel itself, and other countries they might have different rules of stringency, let's say. ומותר ליתן קדרה ריקנית להפסיק בין קדרת החמין לאש. אפילו קדרה חדשה, אחר שקדרות שלנו נגמרה מלאכתם בבית החרושת. Okay. So what's it talking about over here? Okay. The above halacha is concerning a pot of food left on a covered fire, such as gas, stovetop, by a sheet of metal. One may put it back onto an empty pot that is on the warming tray. Alternatively, one may transfer the food to another pot, and then one may add the boiling water to the food. Okay, they actually say the European Jews, the Ashkenazic Jews, follow the poskim rule that it's allowed to add boiled water to the pot of food as long as the water is still warmer than room temperature and the pot has been removed from the fire. So you've got to do those things. There are Sephardic Jewish communities outside the land of Israel, over here, which we were talking about before, who also practiced leniently in this instant over here and permitted the addition of boiling water to the pot. So some communities would do that over there. Members of those communities who have since emigrated to Israel must adopt the stringent ruling of the Shulchan Aruch. So we've got to follow Rav Yosef Karo if we live in Israel, since Sephardic Jews have accepted the rulings of the Shulchan Aruch as the alternative. Okay. ואם אבב יצק מים חמים אל תוך התבשיל שנצטמק, אין לאיסור משום כך לאכול את התבשיל בשבת. ואם אירע את התבשיל לכלי שני, מותר להרות עליו רותחים. והאשכנזים נוהגים להקל להרות בשבת מים חמים, שלא נצטננו לגמרי לתבשיל שנצטמק לאחר שהוריד מעל האש. Okay, let's say that if someone ignored this halacha for one reason or another, and he did add hot water to the pot, the food may be eaten that day. since there are some rabbis who permit this act over here at the end of the day. We do not impose a penalty on someone who performs it and forbid him from eating that specific food, even though the halacha is according to the poskim who forbid it. So there's no penalty within regards to not being allowed to eat this specific food over here. Okay, so now friends, we are on halacha yud daled over here. We'll try and get through 4 more short halachot. We're talking about leaving food on the fire as Shabbat begins here. And Siman 253, if anyone is joining in now, on halacha yud daled over here. We're now going to talk about pouring hot water into food off the fire. You've taken food off the fire, and now you're going to pour hot water on it. Is that going to be allowed or not? Let's learn about it. Asur la'arot b'Shabbat mayim rotchim letavshil shebekli rishon sheyad tzeled bo av lacha shaviro me'al ha'esh. Okay, asur la'arot b'Shabbat mayim rotchim. You're not allowed to pour on Shabbat hot water to the tavshil shebekli rishon sheyad tzeled bo av lacha shaviro me'al ha'esh. Even if it's taken out of the fire itself, this pot is, you're not allowed to pour the boiling hot water over here. This is as long as it is the food on a pot is yad tzeled bo. That's the key word here. Ach im shofech mayim merubim ma'od ובת אחת לתוך כלי ראשון שבירו מעל האש מותר, ובזה מותר אפילו בצונן שאין הצוננים מתבשלים בתוך הרותחים אלא מפשירים את הרותחים. Okay, so friends, what's going on here? One may pour a large amount of even cold water over here all at once in a pot of hot water or cold food or hot food, sorry, that has been removed from the fire. As the cold water mixes with the hot water or the food in a pot, the result is that the hot water or food is cooled down rather than cold water getting cooked. So very, very interesting over there. Please look over this also. 3 more halachot, friends, over here. We're now in halacha tet vav. Sorry, there's probably noise here in the background, but nothing like the noise of people speaking here in Israel. Hopefully we're all speaking good words of Torah and blessings and mitzvot. Okay, halacha tet vav at the moment. Siman 253, friends. Kol mash asur Yisrael מדברים הנזכרים בדיני שהיה והטמנה אסור לומר לגוי לעשותו, ואם אמר לגוי להדליק האש ולחמם הקדרה אם נצטנן, או שאמר לא להניח על אש גלויה, אף שהתבשיל היה מבושל כל צרכו, אסור לאכול ממנו אף לאחר שיצטנן. Whenever an act of leaving food on the fire is forbidden, it is forbidden as well to instruct a non-Jew to perform that act for Jews. If someone instructed a non-Jew to ignite a fire and warm up a pot of food that is cool, or to place it on an uncovered fire, it's forbidden to eat that food on Shabbat, even if it becomes cool once more. This is so even if the food had already been completely cooked beforehand over here. So there's a stringency over here. So let me just digest this a little bit. So you cannot instruct a non-Jewish person to perform the act for Jews over here. And there's a penalty over here. If someone, one more time, if someone instructed a non-Jew to ignite a fire and warm up a pot of food that is cool, or place it under uncovered fire, it's forbidden to eat that food on Shabbat, even if it becomes cool again. Even if it's as in like the same as before, you're not allowed to do it. You did something very wrong over here. So there's just a bit of noise here. There's a van inside the background. Let's try and do 2 more halachot on this fantastic Wednesday morning at the time of recording. You guys will be watching this at other times also. Okay, halacha tet zayin now. Over here. We're talking about saving food from burning. Some people might like crusty and crunchy food that might be a little bit burned also, don't forget, in some specific instances. Can you actually save it if you want to avoid that, which most people would? Can you save a food from burning? You don't want it to become rotten. Okay, tet zayin. Let's go for it. Hamashkim b'boker. You're getting up in the morning. You've got some tavshil lach. ויראה פן יקדיח יותר, יכול להסיר ולהניח קדירה ריקנית על הגז, ואז ישים הקדירה של תבשיל בתוכו על גבי הקדירה הריקנית. What's going on here, friends? And someone wakes up in the morning on Shabbat and finds that his pot of liquid is beginning to burn. He may remove it from the fire, put an empty pot over the fire, and then place the pot of food on top of the empty pot over here. יכול להסיב ולהניח קדירה ריקנית על הגז, ואז ישים הקדירה שתבשיל בתוכו על גבי הקדירה הריקנית. Okay. ויזהה שלא יניח קדירתו על גבי קרקע. You've got to be careful not to put this קדירה onto the floor like we talked about before. ושתהיה רותחת over here. Especially when it's when it's going to be especially when it's hot. Okay, let's continue. I just lost the place over here at the moment. Okay, ויזהה שלא יניח קדירתו על גבי קרקע ושתהיה רותחת. אולם בתבשיל המונח על גבי גז מחוסה בפח או על גבי פלטה של שבת, יש להקל גם עם הניחה על גבי קרקע. ולבלבד שקדירה תהיה רותחת, שאם לא כן יש בזה משום בישול, אך הבישול בלח. ובזמנם, in parenthesis, היו רגילים לבשל על קדירה ריקנית, ולכן שייך בה מכסה כמבשל. Okay, so friends, what's it talking about here? He must be careful not to place a pot of food in the meantime on the floor. Cooking on top of an empty pot was common in Talmudic times, and therefore the problem of appearing to be an act of cooking applies to this case. He must also make sure that it is still as hot as Yad Ledbo when he places his pot back onto the fire over here. So friends, there's different conditions over here. The last halacha for today. Now we're talking about raw fruits. What on Shabbat? What's it in? You're putting it on the plate. Can it get better? Why would someone want to put warm fruits on a plate? There's different reasons why someone would do it, but let's find out very much so. Now, raw fruits. פירות שנחלין כמות, שאין חיים מותר להתנם מערב שבת, סביב לקדירה אב שאינו גרופה וכתומה. אף על פי שאי אפשר שיצלו קודם חשיכה. So friends, what it's talking about? It's permissible to place fruits that are normally eaten raw fruits we're talking about, such as apples and pears, around the edges of a pot that is sitting on the fire. Cover the fruits with an insulating material before Shabbat and leave them to roast during the Shabbat. This is so even if one is certain that the fruits will not become roasted until after Shabbat begins. Okay. אף על פי שאי אפשר שיצלו קודם החשיכה, וטוב להחמיר ליתן על קירה גרופה וכתומה. ומי הוא צריך להיזהר שלא יחסך הכיסוי את נגלה החשיכה, ושלא להוסיף עליו כיסוי עד שיצלו, מפני שממהר לגמור בישול בשבת. Okay, what's it talking about here? Okay, I'll say it again over here, friends, because I'm just trying to get my train of thought over here. It is permissible to place fruits that are normally eaten raw, such as apples and pears, around the edges of a pot that is sitting on a fire. Cover the fruits with insulating material before Shabbat and leave them to roast during the Shabbat itself. This is so even if one is certain that the fruits will not become roasted until after Shabbat is going to begin. If the insulating cover falls off the fruits on Shabbat, it is forbidden to recover them or even to add more covers to the existing cover on Shabbat, since that causes the fruit to roast more quickly. So we don't want to speed up the cooking process or the roasting process within regards to fruits over here. And that very much concludes today's halacha. I would like to dedicate this once again to Refuah Shlema to Orit Bat Esther, who is undergoing treatment at the moment. May she make a full Refuah Shlema and just see blessings in the time. So, okay, wishing you all a fantastic day. And here from the city of Bet Shemesh, hope you enjoyed the halacha. Share over here, and please watch over all the previous installments over here, and hopefully we'll continue and learn this together.